Freedom.
I have to tell you that I came about with the local currency around 2003, I think, more or less. I was living in Germany and I went backpacking all over Europe, and then I made a very long stop in Netherlands, and over there I met the people from the foundation STRO. STRO is the acronym for Social Trade Organizations, and they introduced me to local currencies. And back then, I thought it was a bit crazy because actually, the countries of Europe were just leaving behind their own currency and having a regional one. So I thought it was not a very good idea. But then I start reading, I start educating myself, and at the end, in 2000, I think it was 2004, this same organization offered me a job in Central America as a project manager for their projects in the region in Honduras and Costa Rica. But there was almost no projects, only one in Honduras, and so I had to start by identifying possible counterparts. So I started more or less formally. I think I started in 2004, and ever since, well, until 2010, which I left the foundation for my PhD studies. We made the feasibility study for, I think it was around 16 local currencies all over Latin America. We started from the feasibility studies. We started around 9, I think, or yes, 9, which some of them are still working. In Costa Rica, 2 of them are working. In Honduras, 2 of them are working. In El Salvador is one of the successful one from my perspective. Other projects didn't reach maturity. Projects in Nicaragua, there was a project in Costa Rica that also didn't work out very well. Then with the same foundation, I moved to the Andean region. I moved to Colombia, to Bogota, and we started doing some feasibility studies over there in Colombia and in Ecuador. In Ecuador, they had social economy ministry. We did 3 feasibility studies at the same time, hand in hand with a local foundation called Pachamama Foundation. And we started 3 projects. I think it was 2007, 2008. And those projects were reaching they were working pretty well. They were reaching maturity, but the national government decided to stop it. So it was a bad situation, but back then I was already getting ready for starting my PhD studies in Italy. So I have to tell you that my background with local currency is around 10 years doing feasibility studies and then following the implementation and sometimes even evaluating them. I was invited by projects in Asia and Europe to review them and make recommendations to them. So I have my perspective is from the economic perspective. I really don't like to talk about local money. I rather talk about alternative means of exchange, which is a broader concept. And also this makes, for me, alternative means of exchange or local currencies, as you want to call them, they make sense only if they are a part of a local development strategy. If they are not part of a local economic development, then to me it doesn't make much sense. It's probably a very nice or very interesting exercise that I'm usually not used to get involved. So for me, the feasibility study is about that, about the understanding the local development conditions, and then design the currency to answer it as a strategy. I've been working, reading, and supervising PhD and master degree thesis on local currencies, and I have to tell you that from from my experience, back in the year 2000, just a feasibility study, it was a lot of effort, a lot of money invested on the feasibility study just to come up, for instance, just to come up with a recommendation of not doing a project like it happened to us in Colombia with the first feasibility study we did. But right now, the vision, the way I see it is that the technologies, the information, and the technicalities and the information is so widespread and is so cheap right now in comparison with 20 years ago that in my opinion, local currency will become more and more and more used to, there is a very famous PhD thesis done in Netherlands that classify the reasons why people communities do local currencies, and they make a very big difference between developed societies like Europe or the United States and developing societies like the ones we have in Latin America. And most of the time, the reasons for doing a project in developing countries, like I have seen, is as a part of creating an extra income, and it makes the local economy more resilient. While in the north, this might be true as also, but it's also part of the thinking outside the establishment, thinking about outside the box. Not being part of the system. So that's the main two reasons, and I think this is becoming. My vision is that these two visions, these two ideas or objectives of creating local currencies are becoming more strong, and the reason that the IT technology is more available, it will create much more currencies than we already have. In the last review, academic review I made, the bibliographical review I made, we could count around 500 local currencies. But I'm sure that in the future we will have many more, and most of them virtual. I think most of them are virtual. Virtual are safer, cheaper, and easier to use because almost everyone has now a mobile phone. In the middle of the pandemic, we support a rural community in Ecuador to start their own currency called Jurupis, and it was fully developed virtual, and most of the people didn't have internet on their mobiles, and we use SMS. It's really amazing the speed that this is going in comparison with the designs we made 20 years ago. When we were making the blueprint for a series of local currencies in Central America, we were just thinking, I'm talking about 2004, 2005. We were dreaming or on having at least 3 local currencies with printed money on Costa Rica, 2 or 3 in Nicaragua, 2 or 3 in Honduras, 2 or 3 in El Salvador, and 2 or 3 in Guatemala. At the end, this didn't happen. It was just our dream. We came up with some of them in Costa Rica. At the end we had 2 that's still working, and I still have some money here, like this one. This one is from Coprebrisas. This is part of our design. This is one of the ones that are not working. But we have all those others, like the one of the one from Cope Victoria. This is still working. And back then, let me show you this is a 10,000 colones bill or UDIs, and this is a 2,000. Back then, we were just dreaming about the fact that people from one country could go to other country. No, first we dreamt of currencies in the same country, going to the different places and exchanging their money freely. We were dreaming of that, but that's very complicated because of the because of the cost associated with each project. We have to remember, for me, it's very important. The conceptual part of money is very important. So we have to remember that money is an agreement, just an agreement. The US dollar and the Costa Rican colony is an agreement imposed by the government, but money still is an agreement. So the fact that you go to any country, Argentina, Brazil, or I don't know, Romania, and people accept US dollars, is part of an agreement that to use US dollars as a global currency. So we were dreaming on having software instrument where we have all the different currencies in Central America, and when people move from one territory to another territory, just to register in the database and then go there, go to the other place where the other currency is and exchange it one by one as part of an international agreement for use local currency. We were dreaming of that, but just the technical challenges and the cost of those challenges, we knew back in 2007 that we could do it from the software program perspective, but that was going to be very expensive, and so we were just dreaming about a caja de compensación or local money exchange. So that was just part of a dream. And as part of the developing of those tools, we started in 2007 a project, a software project, mutual credit project with the software in El Salvador, called Punto Transacciones, which is the one I'm telling you still is working, and in my opinion still is one of the most successful one we designed back then. And it was really interesting to see because just the design of the software, we spent nearly $200,000 for the design, and maybe another 100 for the implementation on San Salvador, on the city of San Salvador. But in another rural area, we have a printed coin, a printed currency. This one. And because of the directors of the two projects, the rural one and the digital one, they agree within them. The people with digital money, well, it's not digital money, it's like a digital a database, could go to the rural area and ask the equivalent of their amount in printed money in the rural area. And when the people of the rural area came to San Salvador, they could go to the offices of this cooperative and give them some money and get digital money in the same equivalent, 1-to-1. That's why I'm telling you, a caja de compensación is nothing than an extension of the agreement that we call money. And it was really interesting to see how this was working, And at the end, this exchange of money between projects, a digital and non-digital one, stopped because the project in the rural area, the director of the project of the rural area, disagree on keep on going with them. So the caja de compensación is a dream that we had maybe 20 years ago, that with the price of the technology and the blockchain capabilities, is a reality we could do right now. It's been happening with all the wallets. I've been reading very recently about that, so I don't have a very deep understanding. So my criteria might not be very appropriate, but based on what I read, I think initially, as the initial idea, the way I understand it, is really, really interesting. And I'm telling you why. Because it's community based, and the city of Miami, the paper I read, it says it's a collective currency rather than business based currency. So that's why I like it initially a lot. But I think it's going to be very difficult for a community to decide how to spend their their local currency, not because it's impossible, but because people is not used to that. So probably, initially, the way I understood initially, I think is a wonderful idea. I really hope it can keep on going. I rather in the stage of the economic situation we are right now as a society, I rather go with a project like this, even if it's mistaken, learn from our mistakes, and then redesign it and launch it again, then keep on going the same way we're going right now. From the monetary perspective, the situation is just unsustainable from every perspective. So, but I like the idea initially.
Freedom.
Accessing the blockchain technology is very cheap compared with other technologies and compared in 20 years ago, like I just mentioned, so only that is really, really helpful for the social currencies or the social money movement. We have a social movement in Latin America, which I'm part of it. So just the blockchain technology being so accessible is wonderful. And I know of a local currency in Geneva called Le Mans that they had some of that here. Le Mans in here. They had printed money, and they migrate to blockchain while keeping the printed money. Because of the technology, as I told you, is way cheaper and is way safer. That's from the technological perspective. It makes it more available, the social currencies. Another thing is the traceability. If you could follow where every bill has been, which hands has used those bills, that traceability gives you the idea of how much wealth one single coin or one single bill creates. That's nearly impossible to measure right now with national currencies and with local currencies. That's another dream we had. But with blockchain technology, we can follow up who has which money, when, and where, and how it was used. So this traceability can give us the amount of wealth that is created. So that's called the speed of circulation also. The speed of not only circulation, but the speed it circulates also create wealth. That's from the monetary theory. That is called the multiplier effect from Keynesian economy, the multiplier effect. So the fact that we have the availability to trace that, for me, is really amazing, because we can use all this database information to design coins better, way better. We will have probably in 10 years another wave of, I hope another wave of currencies way more oriented by community with way better social impact, that will be like that because of all this database information that tells us where it goes, the speed of circulation, where it creates wealth. Right now, there's a lot of criticism on Bitcoins, for instance, that a lot of illegal businesses are doing. And, I think this is, we cannot avoid that, but Bitcoin is one of the first wave of cryptocurrencies. I hope we'll learn from that, and we have a better second and third and fourth wave of cryptocurrencies. There's one final detail also that I would love to mention about blockchain-based currencies, and the fact that we can trace the use of the money and how it creates wealth and where it goes and where it comes. These also there's a macroeconomic theories telling that if in one territory you have more than one currency, for example, when there is a crisis, economic crisis in any country, let's say in the US, from the monetary perspective, a crisis is a reduction on the circulation of money. And then the crisis start finishing when the circulations start picking up. I'm thinking on the axis, thinking on the graphic perspective. So you have, the economic crisis begins, and the amount of money start decreasing. The economic crisis ends, and recuperation starts, and the amount of money start raising. There are theories that if in one territory you have at least two currencies, when there is a crisis, people will go and use the other currency, the alternative currency, and then it creates a counteractive effect. And the professor that gave that theory measured that with one of the biggest community mutual credit networks in Switzerland, and he demonstrated, empirically speaking. So I really think that for a more stable economy, we really have to have more than one currencies, more than several alternative means of exchange over one territory. For example, now in Costa Rica, I have a proposal to measure, to promote reforestation, measure the amount of CO2 per hectare, and then make a blockchain relation with the amount of CO2 per hectare, and going out and sell that blockchain currency based on CO2, which I think is a wonderful. That for me, that's a second wave of currency, because it's based on nature, But I'm not sure if this is I'm not completely sure this is a good idea or not, because we have to see it implemented first. But the thing that we're already thinking about creating wealth by preservation of nature, it means a different style of thinking. Previously, when we saw nature, we saw natural resources. From some communities, Aboriginal communities, that way of thinking is outrageous, But now we are preserving the CO2 on forest, and creating wealth out of that. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity that we have in our hands.
Freedom.